Alright guys, today we're going to go ahead and we're going to change that alternator. When I get the truck running, my voltage is not going up, it's not charging, and I think that's the original, or close to the original one that's been put on the truck. So we're going to change it. Actually, I'm going to rebuild it, but I'm not going to do a video on that, but I'll put a video link on how to convert one of these from 110 amps to 200 amps. You can buy a kit. The kit's like a complete rebuild kit for about $139 plus some shipping. Alright guys, here's some tools you're going to need. Some of them you won't, some of them you will, but I put them in the list just in case you do need them. You're going to need a battery charger to charge up the battery, or a jumper cable to jump the truck, because you're changing the alternator, so obviously the batteries aren't charged, so you're going to need it to charge it up to start the truck up. You're going to need a voltmeter to check your battery voltages before and after you start the truck to make sure the alternator is working. Even good alternators, new from reputable dealers, are bad sometimes. Going to need a breaker bar or a 1/2-inch ratchet. Make things to break the bolts free. They get stuck pretty good sometimes. You're going to need a 3 to 6 inch 1/2-inch drive extension. You're going to need a 1/2-inch drive 13mm socket. Going to need a 10mm to get the cable off the back of the alternator. You're going to need a 13mm to get the battery terminals off, cables off, the battery terminal cables off. You're going to need a torque wrench. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. Just snug it down with the ratchet and go about 1/8 of a turn more, and that should be close enough. You're going to need a wire brush in order to clean up the pad area where the alternator sits on the alternator and power steering bracket. A battery terminal cleaner to, for obvious reason, clean up your cable terminals and battery terminals. You're going to need some anti-seize, so when you torque down those alternator bolts, you can get them off next time easily. Going to need either a 12 or 14mm combination wrench in case your 13mm doesn't do the job on the battery terminals. Some of them are a little different, so you might need those, you might not. If you want to make the job go a little quicker, you can have a little stubby ratchet with a 3/8 drive extension and a 3/8 to 1/2-inch drive adapter for the 1/2-inch drive 13mm. Gonna need a Ziploc bag to cover up the alternator terminals after you remove them so they don't short out. That way you can charge the batteries and work on the truck at the same time. A couple of things I thought you might need that I forgot to mention in the tool list is you're going to need a step stool or a chair to stand on. And if you can afford, get one of these. They're like 45-50 bucks on Amazon. They're called tire steps. They're great because you can get right up in the engine bay. So anyways, those are 3 extra things you might use or want to consider. Alright, so the first thing we got to do is we got to disconnect both negative battery cables, this one and this one over here. So let's get to it. Alright, find your appropriate wrench that you need in order to remove it. Take it, stick it down in here. Let's go do the other one. There we go. On mine, it's 13mm. I don't know what yours is going to be, but mine, it's not the original nuts on there. Make sure you put it someplace it won't pop back up and touch this. If this touches that and then that hot touches the ground, you're going to be shorting your battery out through your wiring system. So you don't want to do that. Alright, next thing we got to do is we got to go ahead and take the belt and loosen the tensioner on it and drop the belt down here. Before you do that though, check your belt diagram, or take some videos of it if you don't have a belt diagram to know where your belt goes, so you can put it back on. Alright, to loosen up the belt, you have to turn that tensioner right down there. That one right there. See that little square hole? That's a 1/2-inch square hole. And you have to put your breaker bar in there, like this one. And you got to pull towards you and then release the belt. So let's get that breaker bar in there. Alright, just stuff it down in there so it goes in that little square hole. Go ahead and stick that in there, and then you'll have to reach down in here and push on it with your hand. Sorry, the camera's in the way, so I didn't really get to show you on camera. Step up on your step stool, grab your breaker bar and push it all the way to one side. Lift up the belt off the alternator, and then you can slowly release the wrench. Now to get the breaker bar off, just take it and push it towards the engine. However, I'm not going to do that right now because I'm going to need it when I put the alternator back on, so just leave it in there for now. Alright, let's go get the alternator disconnected now. Alright, to disconnect this cable right here, just push on it with your finger. You're going to push this little tab right here in, right here. And you get a little screwdriver and stick it up under the corner of the connector. And just kind of pry up, comes right off. And to get this, just get yourself a 10mm wrench and take it off like that. Hold on to the nut and the wire. Remove the wire and screw the nut back on like that. All right, the only thing left is to remove these 3 bolts and lift the alternator off. It's a 13mm, just using a regular 3/8 drive ratchet and a 3-inch extension. There we go. One down, 2 to go. Dang, that sucker's on there tight. Might have to go for a lower profile here. There we go. Ow! Ooh, that hurt. Hit my hand right here on this pulley. Oh, them suckers are in there tight. When I put them suckers back on, they're going back on with some anti-seize. Till then, I'm gonna get a little bit bigger bar on this. Here we go. I got a 1/2 inch and a 13mm. That's better. That was a lot easier that time. Oh. Boy, that hurt. That's gonna leave that left a mark. Probably a blood blister on top of it. The whans of mechanics. My wife says if I'm not hurting myself working on a vehicle, I'm not working on a vehicle. And you guys feel like that sometimes? So, anyways, let's get these out. See the corrosion on that? That's why I'll be putting anti-seize back on that bolt before I put it back in. Alright, all 3 are off. This should just come right off now. There we go. Alright, all I got to do now is go rebuild this and put it back on, and I'll show you how to put it back on and what you need to do next. Alright, about a half an hour before to an hour before you reinstall your new alternator, take your alternator feed and your connector, stick it in a Ziploc bag, reconnect both battery terminals. This one is just kind of pushed on. You don't have to tighten the bolt down. Just push it on and wiggle it back and forth like this, and make sure that it sits in really nice. Then go ahead and put a battery charger on it, and make sure that your batteries are recharged before you connect up your new alternator and try to start it. This will prevent the alternator from getting such a heavy load. It also makes it a lot easier because now you don't have to jump the truck in order to start it to test your alternator. So let's go ahead and let this charge for a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and come out and install the alternator. Okay, while your batteries are charging, go ahead and get a stiff bristle brush, wire brush, sandpaper, something, and clean off all the connection points that the alternator is going to sit on. Make sure and get all 3 of them. Then take your newly rebuilt alternator, or your new one, and set it on there like that. The bolts kind of if you leave them in there, they kind of set it up a little bit, so it's easier. And I decided to paint mine since I was going to rebuild it, and I made it like some Ford blue and put some like silver spackle in it. I don't know why. It's not a show truck, but I just thought I'd put a little bit of what we call down here in the South some lanyap on it, or some bling, is what some people say. All right, then go ahead and pull these out and put some anti-seize on them. If you haven't cleaned these up already, meaning getting all the corrosion and stuff out of the threads, and I painted them just so they'd look a little bit better. Take a little bit of anti-seize. You don't need a lot, just a little bit like that. Stick it on there, drop it in the hole, and screw them down. Do that to all three of them. There we go. And if you want, get a little stubby ratchet. I had a 1/2 inch, so I had to put an adapter on it, and just run them down like this. You don't have to tighten them down or snug them down yet, just get them all down. And give them just a tiny snug like that. Now the book says to put 35 foot-pounds on it. And if you don't have a book, or you don't have a torque wrench, just snug them down real good and give them about 1/8 of a turn, and that should be good enough. If you have a torque wrench, and you can pick these up for under 50 bucks, you know, just for a home do-it-yourself or not for a professional. Run it up to where the line intersects the aircraft, helicopter. Okay, as I was saying, this line from the 30 is going to come down, and you want to run this around till the 0 and that 30 liner as close as possible, and then run it over to 5. And the book says 35 foot-pounds. And tighten up your little locking screw here. Put your system on there, or your socket set on there, and crank it until it stops. Like that. Whoop. I'm using adapters because I couldn't find my 1/2 inch extension. Alright. Get all three. You don't have to worry about the paint on the top, because the bottom is going to contact it, and the bolt will scratch through the paint, as you see right there. If you're worried about it, put a lock washer on it, or clean it, or whatever you want to do. Just make yourself happy there. All right, so let's go around to the back and connect that. But before we do that, we have to disconnect the battery charger. Get it out of the way. Disconnect the cables. Set it down here. Make sure it's the negative, not the positive you're dropping down there. Let's get the other side over here. Set it down in there so it won't pop back up. Let's go get the back of the alternator hooked up now. All right, now that you have your batteries disconnected, that's very important. Go ahead and pull your cables out of your zip tie bag. Put your connector on here for your positive, and drop your 10mm bolt on it, or nut. Here we go. Here. And this one, don't forget to clean it. Mine was clean, so I'm not going to worry about it. And this one, you just got to snug it. That's about it. That's all you got to do. Drop your connector on right here. Check it for corrosion inside there. Mine looks good. Push it down until it snaps or locks in. Hear that click? You know, that's what you're looking for. Okay, this part's installed. Now we have to go do the belt tensioner. Before you hook up your belt, or after you hook it up, either way, check this diagram and make sure that you're putting your belt on correctly. If yours doesn't have it, well, then you've got it right here. If you have dual alternators, you'll see it here. If you have a single like me, you'll see it here. So don't forget to check that. That should be under the hood of your truck, next to your driver's battery. All right, now what you need to do is you need to get this alternator belt here. You can run it up over the top of the idler pulley here. Put this right up in here. Make sure it's in the grooves. Grab this wrench or this breaker bar and run it over. You might have to like smack it with your hand. There we go. And put this underneath the idler right here. Of course, if you have help, that's even better. Make sure it's in the grooves, and then you can go ahead and release it. Now, before you take the wrench out, run around and make sure the belt is in the grooves everywhere. Includes the AC compressor, alternator. Make sure it's down here in the power steering. Let me zoom in down there. Right here, make sure this is in here properly, right there. So let's get over to the other side. Got to check down there. Make sure it's on this water pump. The flat side is. And then the way down in the bottom is the crank pulley. Then you're going to come over here and you're going to check the tensioner pulley right here, this one. It's got to be there, and then the other side down over there has got to be there too. Make sure everything's all in line. Sometimes the idler pulley might be a little crooked. That's okay. I got to clean that sucker up. It's been a while since I ran the truck because of the alternator problem right here. So, but it'll wear off. If not, I'll just hit it with some sandpaper. I checked the pulley. It's fine. It's got the usual little bit of play, but it's not squealing, so it's good. Later I might do the video on just how to replace that, just for the fun of it. All right, now that you got all this together and all the pulleys look good, everything's lined up, now you can grab this breaker bar and just push it like that, and the wrench will release and you can pull out, or the breaker bar will release and you can pull out. All right, so connect up the batteries after you clean the terminals on them. Do any corrosion control work you need there, and then we'll go ahead and start the truck. All right, so let's go ahead and connect the battery. If you don't have one of these, it's a battery post and terminal cleaner. Get one if you're going to do any maintenance on a car. Even if you don't do maintenance on cars that much, it's always a good idea. This sucker can save you probably 50 bucks at a repair shop, having them clean it for you. Sometimes when they replace batteries, they'll do this part for free, but you know, you got to buy a $100 or $200 and some dollar battery. If it's a truck, well, you know, you're looking at $200 to $300 for a battery, so it's probably just a better idea to buy one of these. I think they're $3 to $5, something like that. They're not much. Go ahead and connect that. Use your wrench, tighten it down. There we go. You don't have to over tighten them, just so it doesn't move and it's got a good connection. All right, I'm going to go do the other side. I'm not going to show that on video. There's no need for that. You guys can figure that out. All right, before you start the truck, make sure you know everything's clear of the belts and everything. The other thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and you want to test your battery and make sure that your voltage is somewhere around 12 volts. In this case, it's 11.91. Yeah, 11.91. So that should be enough to start it. After it starts, you want to check it and see if it's over 12 volts. It should be anywhere from 13.5 to 14.5 volts. If you have that, then your alternator is working properly. And since I rebuilt this alternator, I definitely want to be checking that. And even new alternators or rebuilt ones from reputable manufacturers do have a bad one from time to time. So you want to check that before you drive off and end up stranded down the road somewhere. So this looks good. Let's go start the truck. Oh, there we we go. What I'm specifically looking for is to make sure that the battery light is out over here. And it is out, so that means that that alternator is working and the batteries are charged. So I'm going to go on the outside and we're going to check that voltage and see what the voltage says. If it's higher than 11.91, which is what we have when we went to start the vehicle, then we know that the alternator is actually putting out based on the voltage and based that the battery light is out. Well, I didn't check it right away, so the batteries are pretty much charged. Sorry about that. But when I did check it earlier and I forgot to video it, it was 13.5 volts. So that lets you know the both batteries are charged right now. So this one is about 3.5 years old. So I'm probably going to go ahead and change that. I might do a video on that. I might not. It's not that important. I mean, I did another video on the driver's side, which is harder to do than this one. So, but anyways, I just want to thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you see something I could have done better, or if you like the video, just give it a thumbs up for me. If you want to help the channel, go ahead and please subscribe. Again, thanks for watching. God bless you all. Keep on you out. Bye.